Within the first 5 minutes of 2021's Ender Lilies, you learn that mercy is pain. Not yet having left the tutorial area, there's a written note that describes the enemies you've been fighting. There are blighted whose minds do not fade. This is no saving grace. They must endure an eternity of pain and suffering. The miracle of the white priestess is the only true salvation. That miracle they're talking about is you. The salvation you offer is death, one that, in the game's own description, is agonizing for both the cursed and for the child who delivers it. Ender Lilies isn't subtle about the state of its world. The bringing of death at the cost of your own suffering is the official, theologically considered, best available option. Makes you think what the point of anything is if this is the only true salvation. There is a tendency for Metroidvanias to begin after the end of the world. Not during the apocalypse, not at the heroic last stand. After. The rulers have already failed and the kingdoms have already fallen. Whatever ancient science or divine bargain or royal bloodline was supposed to preserve civilization has already curdled into something monstrous. And then, much later, you arrive. Not as the hero who prevents the catastrophe, but as the thing the catastrophe still has a use for. The apocalypse does not announce itself in 2017's Hollow Knight. The game doesn't give you any objective, the NPC dialogue is vague, and the lore tablets speak of things that you know nothing about. And so you just go where you can go and fight whoever fights you. Maybe you stop and wonder why all these bugs are so hostile. Later on, you acquire the Dream Nail, an item that, amongst other things, allows you to see the thoughts of the creatures you use it on. There's a good bit of narrative mileage you can get out of the Dream Nail in a world that's otherwise uninterpretable. Eventually, in the dark depths of the map, surrounded by corpses you have an unsettling resemblance to, you find a reflection of yourself. There's only one thing to do. No cost too great. No mind to think. No will to break. No voice to cry suffering. Born of God and void. There were previous efforts to combat the blight. The former king harnessed the powers of the white priestesses to contain the disease within themselves. Generations of the white priestesses each carried the harrowing burden of the infection, preordained to the same fate as all the kin before them. You are Lily, a descendant of the white priestesses, woken up alone in a stone chapel without any memory of who or where you are. Eventually you piece together your past and so your future is clear. Become the next living prison of the blight. In the endgame you finally find Freesia, the white priestess before you. I left out the last 3 lines after you dream nail yourself. You shall seal the blinding light that plagues their dreams. You are the vessel. You are the Hollow Knight. Except, actually, you're not. The real Hollow Knight is sealed in a temple as a vessel for the infection. Hallownest's former ruler, the Pale King, mass-produced vessels like the Hollow Knight and the player, believing that it could effectively contain the infection. The memory of your grueling climb to the surface was merely a survival of the fittest-esque trial to sift out the strongest offspring. But evidently, not even the best vessel could restrain the infection forever. There is a small, dark room at the heart of both of these kingdoms. In Hollow Knight, it is a stone temple encasing a vessel. In Ender Lilies, it is buried deep below the surface, a red, misty abyss, home to an endlessly suffering bloodline. The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas is a short story published in 1973 by Ursula K. Le Guin. It is less than 3,000 words, and 2 is about a child's eternal sacrifice. The city of Omelas is described as a perfect place. The food is good, the music is beautiful, there is no war, no sickness, no cruelty. But in a small, dark room beneath the city, there is a child. The child is hungry and in perpetual pain, and though the narrator never quite explains how, the entire city's happiness is dependent on the child's suffering. Ultimately, the story is about strictly 2 options. Fully conscious of the existence of the suffering child, do you stay in paradise, or do you take the same path as the ones who walk away from Omelas? I bring this up because the Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas, despite laying the same blueprints, exhibits an inverse realm to these games. Neither Hallownest nor the Kingdom in Ender Lilies are remotely close to the utopia that is Omelas, that much is clear. These worlds are not prosperous, yet they still confront us with the same 2 doors that the citizens of Omelas face. In a reciprocal way, to stay is to choose to exist in the fractured world, and to leave is to save yourself. You don't actually have to find Freesia, not physically, at least. In the first ending of Ender Lilies, you make your way to the edge of the kingdom and find Freesia's spirit. I've been watching all along, she tells you. You tried to help, just like everyone else, but this burden is not yours to bear. The blighted world is of my making. I brought it upon myself. Isn't it tragic that the sole purpose of being born is to carry the sins of those who came before? Truthfully, I wish you had been born far into the future, into a purified world, free of blight. So please, I beseech you, go and live of your own accord. This is the leave option, liberation granted by the very soul you are meant to replace. Forget this kingdom and live your own life, be free of the blight, your duties, and the horrors you have seen here. You are a child after all. The infection is still present and the land remains dreadful, but you are given the chance to escape it, and you do. For me, this ending felt unsatisfying but nonetheless extremely valid. In this game you don't even attack. Lily summons spirits to fight for her. She is not equipped to remain here, so how could anyone ask her to stay? I am reminded of a comment in the AMA Team Cherry gave not long after Hollow Knight released. A user asks, is any one ending more canon than the others, or are they all equally canon? To which Team Cherry replies, all endings are equally canon. We're not into true endings. You choose the path yourself. But funnily enough, you don't get the choice to leave Hallownest. In the Hollow Knight ending aptly named The Hollow Knight, you finally unseal the Black Egg Temple, the structure meant to encase the infection. You find another vessel, chained and clearly overcome with disease. This is a boss that is tortured from within. It does not want to fight you, but its consciousness is overpowered by the very thing it tries to restrain. During the stagger, the Hollow Knight stabs itself, a rebellion of its own physicality. Inevitably, you will be victorious. You absorb the infection into yourself, become the new Hollow Knight, the next vessel for the sickness, the next child in the dark room. Hallownest continues its status quo, just a different host to contain the horror. Ender Lilies also gives you the choice to stay. Upon finding the physical body of Freesia, she pleads with you to leave. Flee, be rid of this place. It's too late for me, but it's also too late for that. The final boss of this game is the Blighted Lord, which I can only describe as a cathedral given flesh. Where all other bosses at least exist on equal footing, the Blighted Lord hangs over the arena, towering and symmetrical, an abhorrent configuration of tissue and bone. Like the Hollow Knight, the Blighted Lord seems to be actively fighting the urge to attack Lily. The moves of the Blighted Lord are not directed towards the player, but instead are just knee-jerk reactions of a monster who's clearly in pain. Upon your victory, Frisia begs you once again to save yourself. You perform the only true salvation, joining her to contain the blight. Even together, you could not defeat it. You can only endure it for a little longer. It is in these endings that Hollow Knight and Ender Lilies entertain the two choices. But, unlike the people of Omelas, you also have a third option. In the Hollow Knight ending Dream No More, you know what, I actually feel silly setting this up? You know what's coming. Upon defeating the Hollow Knight, with a little help from Hornet, you can use the Dream Nail and enter the mind. It's here that you will find the heart of the infection, the Radiance, a god locked in a living body. The final phase of the fight is a climb. Again, surrounded by your vessel siblings, the parallel is impossible to ignore. The Hollow Knight comes to your aid and you shed your physical form, born of God and Void. The infection is defeated. The vessels are allowed to rest. You freed the child from the dark room, though you were unfortunate enough to make it yourself. If you find the 7 stone tablet fragments scattered throughout the map, you'll be able to craft the Luminant Aegis Curio. The description tells you, the power it holds lessens the suffering caused by the blight during a priestess's purification ritual. With this relic active, you unlock the final ending of Ender Lilies. After again defeating the Blighted Lord for what seems like the 100th time now, you are warned of the consequences of what you're about to do. The Blighted Lord rises again, this time crying and in even more pain. The spirit of your sisters, the other white priestesses, appear in the red mist. The Blighted Lord physically weakens as you progress through the fight until she too can be purified. In the final cutscene, Frisia says, "If I am to pass on a legacy to these children, let it be one of hope, not suffering." I don't think it's a stretch to say that these two climaxes are the expected outcomes of each of these stories. They are the good endings, if you will. We were placed into a land overcome with disease, and so we brought it upon ourselves to defeat it and save the little of what's left. But actually, there's a fourth door, and for that, there's one more game I want to talk about. At a glance, you'd be forgiven for thinking 2024's Nine Souls isn't going to ask much of you emotionally. In a genre saturated by gothic architecture and castle ruins, Nine Souls' bright colors, cute characters, and charming art style presents itself as a refreshingly softer corner of the Metroidvania landscape. And then you start a new save file, and alright. Well, it's not all bad. Eventually, you heal up and form a close bond with a human called Schwan. As it turns out, you were in a slumber for half a millennium and now live amongst the humans. One day there seems to be a big event, and what are they? Oh. Like Ender Lilies and Hollow Knight before it, the world of Nine Souls is overrun with an infection that turns otherwise civil creatures into abominations. You come to know it as the Tianhua virus, but it's not nearly as universal as the previous two infections. You play as Yi, a cat-like creature of a species called the Solarians. On your home planet of Peng Lai, the virus rapidly spread, wiping out nearly all the population. The attempted solution was a stalling maneuver, the Eternal Cauldron Project, an initiative that involved a self-sustaining spacecraft where the non-infected Solarians are kept in a state of cryosleep until a cure is found. This is where the game takes place, and it's why most of the enemies are just robots. It's the superstructure's security system. The minds of the non-infected are put in a shared virtual reality called the Soulscape. Maintaining the Soulscape requires a lot of computing power, so naturally, they're harvesting human brains to use them as biological hardware. Later, you learn that you were responsible for the Eternal Cauldron Project. Nine Souls actually does give you the option to leave. The final boss is your former mentor, Agong. She intends to harness the Tianhua virus by injecting it into the lifeblood of the Solarian ecosystem. Agong is a fitting final test, punishing, precise, and built around everything the game has been teaching you. After you defeat her two phases, Yi reprograms the spacecraft, initiating a warp to his home planet. This cutscene is long and drawn out. You cross a large body of water to see a functioning computer, clearly still being powered by human brains. The music is sharp and uninviting. You sit down for a game of checkers. I cannot give the same grace to Yi as I did Lily. Yi was the one who devised the exploitation of human minds, and yet here he is, using the superstructure intended to preserve his own species to warp back to his own home planet. He defeated Agong just to do something equally self-serving, ignoring all the injustice involved in the very initiatives he enacted. Luckily, that's not how the story has to end. If you deepen your relationship to the human characters fully, they'll be sent on an escape pod back home, along with the other friendly NPCs along your journey. Xuan is reluctant to do so, wanting to remain by Yi's side, but nonetheless, you still have to stop Agong. You again defeat the two phases of Agong when the third phase will push you to the brink. Lightning fast, screen-wide attacks. This is an Agong that has learned to weaponize the virus, a true test of everything you've learned up to this point. But as always, the student overtakes the master. "Are you not scared?" she asks, knowing that everything might turn to dust. "I am scared," Yi says, "but I have also learned to accept failure." Thank you for joining me as we bring an end to this era. It seems not even you can stop the inexorable wheel of history. In one final act of self-destruction, she infects the primordial tree. We watch the collapse of the world. So yes, confronted with a broken world, you can leave and save yourself. Yes, you can prolong the state of suffering. Yes, you can overcome the source of the infection. Or you could burn it all down. I've been sitting on this script for a long time, wondering why exactly these stories stick with me. Because a broken world is meaningless by itself. It's just architecture. Overgrown ruins, abandoned pits, machines humming over empty rooms. I think about Lily standing in front of the spirit of the plague bearer who came before her, being told to live of her own accord. I think about the knight walking back through desolate spaces to a temple no one would have made them enter. I think about Yi choosing to wipe out his own species to protect the humans he grew to love. I don't intend to say that we consciously picked the ending. We finished the game once, end up wherever 20 quiet hours of gameplay took us, and either accept that or search the wiki for how to see the other possibilities. The choice was, in reality, distributed across what items we took, what we walked past, and who we spoke to. By the time we got to the door, the choice had already been made in 1,000 smaller pieces. A broken world can only sit there. It can decay, it can remember, it can keep running on whatever cruelty was built into it, but it cannot decide what you become inside it, even if it offers you a role, as a vessel, or a survivor, or an accomplice. These 3 games aren't about the nature of their worlds, they're about the nature of the person inside. You are your own person. You choose the path yourself.